drinking coffee at 4 o'clock in the evening. Probably gonna regret this. Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Rachel. Thank you so much for joining me. If you're new here, thank you. And if you are not new, thanks for coming back. So today, I'm kind of behind on the times with this. This was a tag that went around last year called the eyeshadow palette tag. So this is kind of a cool way to talk about your eyeshadow collection and kind of highlight some palettes that are noteworthy and that fit certain categories. So I thought I would do this just for fun. I have a lot of eyeshadow palettes. They're probably my most favorite makeup item to collect. So I do have a lot, especially if you're somebody that just is like a makeup lover. This isn't my job. I just genuinely enjoy collecting eyeshadow palettes. Okay, so the first category is, what is your newest palette? So my newest palette is one that I've wanted for a really long time, and I finally got it. It's the Anastasia Beverly Hills Sultry palette. This palette is so beautiful. It is quickly becoming one of my most favorite palettes that I own, period. First of all, the packaging is beautiful, and inside it's got all these different like cool tone and neutral tones. The metallics are absolutely beautiful. Anastasia mattes are always absolutely wonderful to blend out, pigmented, all of that. Their colors are awesome. I just love the color story of this. I love the quality. And I don't have anything else in my collection quite like this. So I feel like it's very unique, which I love. Absolutely love this palette. I just got this maybe a week ago. This came out a while ago, at least a year ago, probably more. And it was limited edition, so it went away. And then they just brought it back for the holidays. They put it in a vault. In the vault was like this and their liquid eyeliner, their mascara, and their eye primer. And really, I bought it because I wanted this, not for the other stuff. So I'm really glad I have it. I've wanted it forever. I finally have it. All right, the second question is, what is your oldest palette? So I really didn't start getting into makeup really until I would say about 4 years ago. I mean, I've always worn makeup, but I haven't really had a lot of eyeshadow palettes or collected a lot until probably about 4 years ago when I started. And this was one of the first ones I got about 4 years ago. This is the Anastasia Beverly Hills Modern Renaissance palette. So this is a classic, tried and true eyeshadow palette. A lot of people have it. A lot of people have talked about it. And 4 years ago, this was the eyeshadow palette to get. It's got just these beautiful, oh my gosh, it's very dirty. It's got these beautiful warm tones, reds, pinks, a lot of neutral tones that you can, as you can see, I've used mostly this corner, just everyday type of shadows. But they've also got something if you want to deepen it up or make it a little more interesting. I absolutely love this palette. It's a classic for me. I've had it forever. I love it. Okay, so the next question was, what is your most expensive palette? So to be honest with you, I really don't have any very expensive eyeshadow palettes. My most expensive eyeshadow palettes are probably these Anastasia ones, and they retail for between $42 and $45. I don't have any like really expensive ones like Natasha Denona or Pat McGrath palettes or anything. I haven't been able to rip the Band-Aid off and spend over $45 on a palette. I just can't do it. Doesn't mean I'll never do it, but I just haven't done it yet. So I would say I've got several Anastasia palettes and they all retail between $42 and $45. Okay, the next question is, what is your most affordable palette? So for affordable, I've got actually 3 of these. I don't know where the third one is right now, but these are the e.l.f. Bite Size eyeshadow palettes, and they retail for $3, and they have 4 shades. I've really had a good experience with these. I love the blendability. I love the pigmentation. The metallics are like super metallic, super wet looking on your lids, and they're only $3. Like, you really can't go wrong. I will tell you, I also had a 4th one, which was the Rosewater, I believe. That one I didn't feel like was as good quality as these other ones that I have. So I have pumpkin pie, cream and sugar, and then I have truffle, which I think is somewhere around here. And those three were really good quality. The rose water one, not so much. I actually gave it away quite a while ago whenever I got it. So I highly recommend at least these three that I just mentioned. So the next one is, what is your everyday palette? So I have two that are the same, just different color varieties. So these are the Wet n Wild eyeshadow palettes. This one is in the shade Rosé in the Air, and this one is in the shade Not a Basic Peach. These eyeshadow palettes I leave right in my top drawer on my desk, and I do that because I always feel like I'm reaching for them. On an everyday basis, sometimes I don't really wear a lot of eyeshadow. I'll just kind of use one or two eyeshadows, put on a wing, and I'm good to go and out the door. So I love these eyeshadow palettes really mostly for the transition shades. The metallics in here aren't the best, I will tell you. But the shades in the top and the bottom on both sides for transition shades for me are perfect. And I feel like they're super easy just to grab, use, and both of these have really good matte shadows in them. Everyday colors, more warm browns, oranges, those types of colors that I typically reach for on a day-to-day basis. I really don't ever hear anybody talking about these, and I think they're great. Again, the metallics I don't love, but they're mostly mattes in both palettes, so I feel like they've got to be under $5 at the drugstore. I think they're definitely worth it just to grab, just to have some, go-to shades in your collection. So I love these. All right, the next one is, what is your most colorful palette? I don't wear color a lot. I will have to admit, I really don't love colorful shadows on me personally, but I bought this more as a collector's item. So this is the Alyssa Edwards and Anastasia Beverly Hills eyeshadow palette. I love Alyssa Edwards. She is my favorite drag queen ever on RuPaul's Drag Race. She's my favorite. I love her.
Back rolls.
So when she came out with this collaboration, I love Anastasia Beverly Hills. I was like, I don't even care what it looks like. I want to buy it. So it is very colorful. And I have to admit, I've only used this a couple of times and I've had it for a while. I actually do use it. I teach ballroom dancing, so I do use it for like when I'm doing competition. I like to do something a little more vibrant just so you can see it on the dance floor. So I have used this for competition purposes, but this is not something I would normally gravitate towards on a daily basis. But it is cool to have like a neon pink matte shadow in your collection. You never know when you're going to need it, or a bright yellow. And the quality of these are great. And I just love Alyssa Edwards. So I would say that's my most colorful palette that I have. Okay, the next question is, what is your smallest palette? Gonna have to go with these again. I mean, these are pretty tiny. I mean, they're smaller than my hand. These are tiny. Again, super good for traveling if we're ever gonna travel again one day. But these are great. Great eyeshadow palettes. I love them, as I've said already. I'm gonna actually combine the next two because I would pick this eyeshadow palette for both categories. So the question is, what is your biggest eyeshadow palette and what is your eyeshadow palette with the best memory? So I would say this is both. So this is the Jaclyn Hill and Morphe collab. This was the first collaboration that they did, I don't know, 3 years ago or something like that. So this eyeshadow palette is pretty big. It's got a whole bunch of different shades. Anything you could ever want, basically, is in here. The quality of these shadows are great. Now, for me, it's the best memory because I remember this was kind of when I was first getting into makeup. And this palette, its launch was so hyped. I was so excited for it. And again, I was first getting into makeup, so I didn't realize, like, things restock. So when this first got launched, I was supposed to be going on a trip. I live about an hour and a half from the airport. So I was in a shuttle going from my home to the airport. And I had, at the time, my cell phone service was terrible and I didn't have service in the shuttle going from my house to the airport. I live kind of in the middle of nowhere. So I had my boyfriend at the time, had him on the phone, and I made sure he had his phone and his computer linked to Morphe so that he could wait in line for me to get this palette. And it was like serious. I don't know, I just feel like this reminds me of a time like when I was first getting into makeup and how excited I was for makeup. And I still am, of course, but that was like when I was first getting into it and everything was so new and I was so hyped to get this palette. I just remember being on the shuttle thinking the world was gonna end if I didn't get this palette right at launch. What palette was worth the hype? This one was 100% worth the hype. This is the Dose of Colors Desi x Katy Friendcation palette. Oh my goodness, do I love this palette. Every shade in here is absolutely beautiful. The mattes are so beautifully buttery, blendable. Somehow, I feel like a lot of the mattes look so different on the eye than they do in the pan, but they look even better on your eye than they do in the pan. I love all the metallic shades. I'll be honest, I don't really use the blues, but all the other ones, this is beautiful. This is kind of like a glittery topper shade. Beautiful. That one's called Just a Kiss. Oh, so pretty. This green is absolutely beautiful. That's probably my favorite shade in the whole palette. This is absolutely worth the hype. I didn't get it right away. I got it probably honestly, maybe even a year after it was launched, and I waited for it to go on sale. I would have paid full price for this. I'm pretty sure they don't sell it anymore, but this was definitely worth the hype. What palette, I keep swinging it around, you already see it before I even finish the sentence. What palette was not worth the hype? Okay, the Naked Reloaded palette. I don't love it. I'm sorry if you love it. If you love it, I'm happy for you, but I don't love it. The metallics in here are chalky. They are chunky, they are funky, don't love them. The matte shades are okay, but there are way more metallics than mattes in here, which already I don't prefer. I prefer more mattes than metallics, but I just don't like the way that these perform. Like that is chunky, like chunky, hunky chunky to me. I don't feel like it's buttery smooth like I would want a palette to be. Like, And especially an expensive palette. I mean, this was not cheap. Now, granted, I did buy it when it was on sale because these naked palettes go on sale a lot. But even at the discounted price, I don't really think it's worth it. It's not the most horrible palette I've ever used in my life. I'm not trying to say that it is. But for the price and for the way people talk about it, I didn't think it was worth the hype. Okay, the next question is favorite palette from a favorite brand. I mean, I've got a lot of favorite brands. There's not many brands where I like absolutely every single thing that they release. I'll be honest with you, there's not that many. But there are certain brands where I like certain things consistently from the brand. Like, I love ColourPop's eyeshadow formula. I love a lot of e.l.f. products, like their complexion products are great. I love L'Oreal mascaras, you know, etc. So for me, eyeshadow formula, my favorite is Anastasia Beverly Hills. I feel like every single palette I've tried from them, now I haven't tried everything from them, but everyone that I've tried, I've really enjoyed, and I've never regretted a purchase that I've made. So this is my favorite Anastasia palette I've ever used. This is the Jackie Aina palette. Oh my goodness, is this the most beautiful palette. It might be one of my favorites, although the Sultry palette is working its way up. This palette is so unique. I mean, I really feel like these shades in here are so vibrant. They're so vibrant. They're so unique. They are just different. And sometimes when you look at a palette that's kind of colorful, at least for me, sometimes I get a little overwhelmed and confused, but I feel like all of these tones work together somehow. It's really cool. Like the purples go with the pinks, go with the neutrals, go with the warm tones. I mean, everything just kind of works together, and it's very easy to create multiple looks from this palette. I just think it's so unique and so beautiful, and I obviously love the quality of Anastasia eyeshadows, so it's a win all around for me. All right, and we're down to the last question, which is, what is your most used palette? I've got quite a few that I've used a lot. Like you saw, the Modern Renaissance one was disgustingly dirty, and I had hit pan. Also, the Wet n Wild little palettes, I've used those a million times. So on top of that, I also feel like this one is one of my most used. This is the Nubian palette by Juvia's Place. So I love Juvia's Place eyeshadows. I have quite a few palettes from Juvia's Place, but this one is my favorite. It's also the first one I ever got from them, and the color story is something I go to, and it speaks to me the most of all the ones I have. So this is full of neutrals and warm tones, which is, again, my go-to. That's what I prefer on me. I love this palette. I got this quite a while ago. I've used it a lot. I used to pretty much use these two up here exclusively as transition shades for a long time. The metallics in here are absolutely beautiful, and it's also got some deeper shades to deepen up a look if you wanted to do that. I just think these eyeshadows are absolutely beautiful, and the colors themselves are just easy for me to use. I don't have to think about it. They're good go-tos, and I gravitate towards it the most. So I would have to say this is my most used eyeshadow palette. All right, you guys, so that is my summary of a few of the eyeshadow palettes that are in my collection. If you ever want me to do like a tour of my eyeshadow palettes or my top 10 favorites, just leave it in the comments down below. Please just let me know what you want to see. And yeah, I guess that's it. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you next time. Bye.